Are there measures being taken not to eliminate other possible alternatives to leadership?
This is war, and we're taking out the threat.
You'll concede this is war.
We haven't declared war. They declared war on us, but we haven't.
War. Secretary Hicks said
we haven't declared.
Just now, you said this is war.
They've called it war.
They've called it war. What I was saying. Okay, well, that was a misspoke. What I was saying that they've declared war on us, but war is ugly. It always has been ugly. But we're taking out a regime that's been trying to attack us for quite some time.
But you're not conceding this is war.
We have declared war. So if we haven't declared war, then I don't see that. The president hasn't asked us to declare war yet.
Who's on first? I don't know. Ask the former MMA fighter turned senator, Markwayne Mullin. That was him trying to answer, well, declaring, quote, this is war, and then saying, who said war? That is Donald Trump's pick to run a department so mired in controversy that Donald Trump's approval rating on immigration is down to 34%, and majorities of Americans think ICE has gone too far. We're back with Miles, Vaughn, and Michelle. He's going to make it better?
You know, I don't want to laugh about this because we are a country engaged in military action overseas that now involves, 12 other countries? So you don't want to laugh about that.
Donald Trump described as a war.
But it sounds like Abbott and Costello, you know, when you're listening to that. It's really unfortunate. And this is the person that we're turning to now run a department that is lost its credibility and is hobbled in lots of ways. What I hope to see is some of the senators, including the Republican senators, Tillis and, remember, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, who grilled Kristi Noem also. I hope that they bring some of that heat to the confirmation hearing to really look at this department and look at what it will take to try to restructure DHS. So it's not just the rubber stamp that Senator Padilla was just talking about. This is just there's too much at stake right now. I mean, right now when we're talking about this, there's a group of Minnesota lawyers that are in Geneva, talking to the UN about the impact of ICE on immigrant communities, on the courts throughout the United States, particularly in the state of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a very serious problem, and it's too serious for them to just pass Markwayne Mullin through because he is a colleague of theirs and because he's, loyal to Donald Trump. There simply is too much at stake right now.
Let me read you, Miles Taylor. I have to put my glasses on to read this accurately. Markwayne Mullin's confirmation hearing to run DHS would take place in the Senate Homeland Security Committee, chaired by Senator Rand Paul, who Markwayne Mullin recently called a, quote, freaking snake, while sympathizing with the neighbor who attacked Paul in 2017. I think Rand Paul had some ribs broken, but don't quote me on that part of it. So this is happening.
Well, look, not good for his confirmation hearing. But I'll tell you what Rand Paul knows, Nicole, that in some way, shape, or form he's going to express during his confirmation hearings. The administration is trying to send an arsonist into a burning house. No one should be under the illusion that Markwayne Mullin is going to go into DHS and clean it up. And you know this, Nicole. Last year, we launched this thing called Defiance.org to crowdsource efforts to counter Donald Trump's abuses of power. Fully half the submissions we get about corruption that we need to try to go after have to do with the Department of Homeland Security. Election threats and immigration threats and designating the political opposition as terrorists and whistleblowers talking about Fourth Amendment violations and Second Amendment violations and, the whole thing. It's a burning building, the Department of Homeland Security, and they're sending a guy in there who helped start that fire. It's become a totally lawless place. Not only is he not going to clean it up, this also comes at a really dangerous moment. And I want to note something, Nicole. I'm not playing the violin for Kristi Noem. But this comes at a very strange moment. Donald Trump said that he thought about the implications for U.S. security when he went into Iran. And now he's firing the defensive team here in the United States. He's leaving us totally exposed. He's putting the Department of Homeland Security in turmoil at a moment when we know the Iranians will plan terrorist attacks against the United States. My question in that confirmation hearing is Markwayne Mullin prepared to actually get the department to focus on what it's supposed to do, terrorists, instead of calling American protesters Antifa and pretending they're domestic terrorists? That's the big question. We are in a war right now. This guy can't even seem to figure out what to call it, and now we're expecting him to go run the defensive team. Once again, this just shows the president's total and complete recklessness with national security. I
mean, Vaughn, it's a great point, and it's actually one Donald Trump introduced when he offered the fourth explanation for why the strikes in Iran happened, after Marco Rubio saying it was because Israel was going to strike, after Donald Trump talking about a month ago about the protesters in the streets, after a couple of the cabinet members talking about regime change and Pete Hegseth just talking about total destruction. He added another rationale. He said it was tied to the attempt to assassinate him after the strike on Soleimani. Is Donald Trump, by saying that, indicating that there is a threat to the homeland from Iran?
I think it calls into question, number one, that. I think that we've known that Iran has posed a threat here domestically, the president of the United States himself. And if you look back to October 2024, when the Biden Department of Justice was able to effectively investigate, charge, and convict a man in Michigan who had a plot, according to prosecutors, that was directed by the Iranian government to kill him. And I think that that really hits at the heart of what Miles is saying, is the operational capacity of the Department of Homeland Security right now. Not only has there been a gutting of career employees, folks that were furloughed, folks that took last year the DOJ buyout to leave the department, but also, literally in real time, the Department of Homeland Security is still technically shut down. And there is no clear avenue in which there are congressional Democrats that are seeking to agree with this administration to open up the Department of Homeland Security and to begin funding it again, because a couple of the demands, like, for example, requiring warrants to go in and execute on attempted deportation efforts here. But I think it also goes back to a really good reporting from our colleagues Laura Barone Lopez and Jake Traylor back in December, where part of Stephen Miller's frustration with Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security leadership, including Corey Lewandowski, was their slowness to spend money that was appropriated through the One Big Beautiful Bill, that $60 billion extra for ICE to carry out its deportation efforts here. And so whether it is for counterterrorism efforts through the Department of Homeland Security or whether it's for their deportation efforts, there is a logjam at the leadership and ultimately at the career personnel level to carry out the type of activity that is meant to protect Americans here at home. And so while on one hand, Donald Trump is removing those over frustration with their slowness to act, at the same time, who is going to operationally fill that gap and carry out the demands? Markwayne Mullin, somebody that doesn't have any experience with the Department of Homeland Security or the executive branch of the federal government. I guess he's made that determination, but it's not clear that there is a hiring spree of other individuals across DHS here at a time that it's still shut down to ensure that they're getting not only hired, but also that those that are currently serving are going to be getting their paychecks in the weeks to come.
Miles Taylor, the White House made a point of making sure it was known publicly that Corey Lewandowski had also been fired. Is it typical for a secretary's staff to also get thrown out when they get fired?
I wouldn't say it's typical. It is typical of Trump, however. I mean, when he went through his previous purges of DHS, including the ones that I lived through, there was sort of a White House review of who else needed to get thrown out the door. I would say, actually, Nicole, what's really noteworthy about this is they've always disliked Corey, so it made sense that they pushed him out. But the fact that Donald Trump announced that he was going to give the secretary this sort of dubious title as an envoy to the shield, something totally made up, didn't exist before, tells you what he's trying to do. I saw him do this with previous DHS secretaries. He wants to give her some sort of title and off-ramp and presumably health care benefits and pay as a way to literally buy her off, Nicole. That's not errant speculation. I've seen him do that before. With previous cabinet secretaries he's fired, he has tried to quickly come up with a sort of consolation job for them because he's worried. He's worried they'll go write a book that's mean. He's worried they will go speak out. And as loyal as Kristi Noem has been, doing everything Donald Trump wants, he fears that she will go out there and undercut him. I doubt she even knew she was going to get this title. Clearly, she didn't know she was going to get fired in that moment if she was speaking while she got fired. But Donald Trump will be, I'm sure, in the days to come, making phone calls to her, telling her he's going to take care of her. This is how a mob boss operates. It's how he operated in the first term. He's certainly doing that again. If I had one piece of advice for Kristi Noem, it would be, listen, you did a lot of bad things, but it's never too late to do the right thing. Maybe you don't want to take that offer. Maybe you don't want to take that envoy job. Maybe you want to tell us the truth of what your conversations with Donald Trump were actually like. But I won't hold my breath.